This video was created with the help of MW Autos, Bristol's most reliable garage, and 24-hour recovery service. Volkswagen Sharan second generation 2-liter TDI engine. Today we are going to replace cambelt, aka timing belt, and the water pump. This particular car is 2012, so let's open the bonnet to see what's going on in there. And in simple words, I'm going to show you what we are going to do today. So I'm going to remove this cover. I can do it corner by corner. It's held on 4 rubber clips like this. So this is our 2-liter TDI engine. The cambelt is under this cover. First, what we need to do is to get access to the cambelt by removing fuel filter, engine mount and bracket and cover. And then second, we are going to replace the cambelt, wheels, tensioner wheel and water pump. Once we get there, it's recommended to replace the water pump. And before we start, let's talk about tools. So let's see, what do I have to do this job? First is a set of sockets from small to big. This particular one is from 8mm to 32. We won't need 32, but still it's normal to have a set of sockets and some smaller sockets with some bits. Then I would recommend to get yourself a set of splint bits, long and short. Splint is a 12-sided star bit, hex Allen, that will help. Of course, we'll need a bucket. Well, we're gonna replace the water pump, so we're gonna drain the coolant, so use some tray, some gloves and glasses to protect your eyes and hands. Then I got this tool set. I bought it on eBay for £39 some time ago. This is a VW cambelt timing and chain set. We won't need all of it for this job. All we need is just one of these crankshaft lockers. It's gonna be this one. These 2 pins, this pin and hex Allen key, and you might use the locker for the tensioner wheel on the auxiliary belt. So if you don't want to buy the whole lot, sometimes they sell just separate bits, like 2 crankshaft lockers, 2 pins and a couple of these. So let's move on, see what other tools we have. Then I have this couple of torque wrenches, one for the small torques, varies from 5 to 25 Newton meters, and another one, bigger one, electronic. This one goes from 20 Newton meters to 200 Newton meters. It's good to have that confidence when you're tightening bolt or nut, that you're tightening to the correct torque. You don't over tighten it, don't break the thread, and you don't under tighten it. So it's kind of important job, cambelt. So it's get yourself torque wrenches or borrow someone. Then I have this tool, which is universal pulley and fan clutch holder set. It's quite simple, it's not expensive. This is a tool and it has different ends on it. This is designed to hold the pulley or counter hold if you don't want it to go anywhere while you're doing the bolts, or if you need to pull the pulley either way. So it's a good tool to have, and you'll need it for this job. Then of course we'll need to raise our car, so I'm gonna use 2 stands and the jack. There's one thing I need to tell about the jack for this car. The clearance on this car the distance from the bottom to the ground is quite high, so if you have one of these little jacks on the wheels from the Halfords, they won't do. They won't lift the wheel off the ground. I got this one 10 ton, so you can raise it quite high. Once you raise it, you can adjust it also, height of it like that, so you can lift it as far as it goes, put it on a stand, and then put the jack down, unscrew this and lift it even higher. So this is my favorite. It's safer, it doesn't move, it doesn't go anywhere, it can hold 10 tons. So yeah, I recommend the bottle jack. There is a couple of things I need to tell you about stands. When you buy them, they normally state the weight they can hold. There can be 2-ton jack, 3-ton jack, and so on. Please notice that when you buy a pair of jacks, it's the amount per pair. So if this particular ones are 2-ton jacks, so it doesn't mean that each one of them can hold 2 tons, but the pair can hold 2 tons. So because we're not lifting the whole car, we're just lifting front, I can show you the weight on the front. This is how you can find out. Front door, whether it's driver's side or if it's UK, it's passenger side. Front door, open the front door, and you'll find the sticker here, and it shows the total weight of the car. That's the weight with the trailer. That's the first axle, front axle. That's the rear axle. So on the front we have 1200 kilograms, 1250, the load. So 2-ton jacks will hold that. So always make sure you get the right jacks, so you don't have your car crashing on you. Then we'll have to support. Because we're taking engine mount off, we'll have to support the engine, and the tool I'm going to use for that is this metal bit, which is called engine support beam, and there are different types of them. So use yours, so accordingly to manual that comes with it, to the specification. This one can hold maximum 500 kilos, which will do for our job. So you'll get yourself support beam. There's one more thing I need to tell about stands. They have like a teeth here, so when you adjust the stand, make sure this teeth goes all the way in properly, so it stays there, not just like halfway or somehow, because it can just go down. So what you want to do is just make sure that it's just in the right step, not in a halfway step, but just properly, so you can just, yes, and it's in. Okay, that's important as well. Then in addition to your standard sockets, there are a few more things you need to get. I'm gonna show not all of it, don't be scared. You'll need 16mm deep socket, because there are a couple of nasty bolts that have sticking out bit on the other end, and you can't fit the normal socket on it, so you need something long, 16mm. Then I've got a set of these sockets, which are 12-sided spline sockets. Out of them you'll need only 19mm, which this is the socket you're going to turn your crankshaft when you're going to adjust the settings on a timing belt. I've got Torx bits, but we have them in there as well, so you don't need to get them particularly. 6mm hex Allen, which also included in that cambelt kit. So, and one more important, I will recommend this tool to anyone, because this is hose clamp pliers. When you need to release clamps on the hoses, in our case it will be fuel lines, they can turn at different angles, they can give you good grip. You can use simple pliers, but these are just magic. I just love them to bits. If you have chance to get them somewhere, get them. Really good tool. And of course we'll have a set of spanners, is good, but please mind, for one thing, you'll have to have two 13mm spanners, two of them. I'll show you why in a minute. The two spanners we will need to use for these two 13mm nuts, M8 thread and 13mm. Get yourself from, I don't know, B&Q, from some DIY shop, because you don't want to do any damage to original nuts. But because in the cambelt kit, yes, of course, we need the cambelt kit, which comes with the belt and pulleys inside and bolts and studs. There will be a couple of studs that don't have heads on them, they're just a thread. So to put them in, we'll have to lock against each other two nuts, and then we'll put them in. Then get yourself water pump. Once you get there, it's recommended to replace the water pump, because things do wear out even if it's not faulty. So you next, if it fails, you don't have to go through all that hassle to take the cambelt off just to replace the cheap water pump. Get yourself coolant, bottle of coolant, and pretty much that's it. Let's clean it and let's take it away and let's get on. Now let's get to the business. First we're going to jack up the car and remove right wheel. Ta-da! What we have done here is jacked up front right side of the car. Don't use jack on its own, use the stand, safety first. Put some chokers behind the rear wheels. Next thing we need to do is remove the inside wheel liner, this protective layer, to get access to the engine from under wheel arch. It held on few bolts like this, so let's take them out one by one. These are star head screwdriver T20 bolts. So I remove all of them. Some will be here, 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 here. So everything that holds this inside liner, just remove and then take it out. There will be total of 13 bolts to remove. 1, 2, 3, 7 along the wheel arch, and then 3 at the bottom here. One is here, just in front of the wheel. Then 1, 2, 3. I'm sorry, it's 4 at the bottom. So 1 and 3 on the side of the bottom undercover. Now with all these bolts removed, we can wiggle the power out. There we go. Now put it somewhere safe. Make sure you don't lose these little metal clips that hold bolts to the rest of the body. Like 4 of them here. Now with this done, let's go to the top of the engine, open the bonnet and remove the fuel filter. Not the filter just itself, but all the filter with the housing and all these hoses and electric connectors. The fuel filter is held by 2 bolts and 1 nut. So there is 1 bolt just down there, another one is here, and the nut is over there. They all 10mm. So 1, 2 and 3. And before that we need to remove this plastic clip that holds a coolant pipe. To unclip this plastic clip that holds coolant pipe to the fuel filter, take the screwdriver, come from this side, so I'll give you a bit better view, and then take it off the hook, and then on the other side as well. There we go. Just this plastic bit. And move it aside. Now let's take our 10mm socket on extension and remove these bolts and nuts one by one. As you can see, fuel filter housing is moving now. If your tool is not magnetic, it's good to use a magnetic tool to take this nut out, because we don't want to lose it. Now the fuel filter housing is loose. We need to disconnect the hoses and connections and remove it. To get this thing out, now what we are going to do is disconnect two hoses on this side, then this hose here, that's a return, that's a fuel supply to the high pressure pump. We're going to disconnect this one. So 5 hose connections, this, and those two, and one electric connector here. First we disconnect electric connector. It's a simple standard connector. You push it here and then you take it off this little hook. Just put it somewhere here. Now I have already prepared bucket to hold the fuel filter. We're gonna take it out with all the hoses and just put it in there, trying to lose as less fuel as we can. So let's start with those further ones. Take our magic pliers. I told you about them before. Yeah, first we're gonna remove this hose out of this plastic catch, like that. And then we are going to and then we just remove it. One, then another one here. Release clips by squeezing them, and then remove 1, 2, 3, 4, and this one is the 5. And use some tissues to catch any escaping fuel. While moving this clip off, hold this metal bit with your other hand so you don't break the plastics that held these two little pipes. Simple. If you're struggling to get the hose off, just help yourself with the flathead screwdriver, and then eventually it will come off. There we go. Don't leave any diesel fuel on coolant pipes. Let's leave them here and disconnect this thing. They don't seem to be leaking so much so far. Let's see what this one says. Yeah, just a few drops. Clean it straight away. And the last one. I just remove the clip. I'll take it out of this housing and then pull it. You know what, once we can mix and match, I'm probably not gonna take this bit off, but I'm gonna take it off here, because there are quite a few places we can do it. Let's use some imagination and remove something that supposedly will be easier to remove. There we go. Forgot about the tissue. You don't. Learn on my mistakes. There we go. Our base is out. So, with the whole, keeping all hoses up, let's put them here. And leave it aside till we change our cambelt. Now clean off any possible diesel drops and let's move on. So what we have here now, this is engine mount, which is held to the car body, and this is the engine bracket that holds the engine. Its mount is connected to this is like a rubber bit inside, so it absorbs all the vibration from the engine. Those are two bolts held that are connected to the bracket. Engine bracket is held to the engine by 3 bolts over there. I'm going to show you later those 3. So these 2 go from the mount to the bracket. Bracket itself is connected by 1, and another one on the other side, and this is the 3rd bolt. We're going to remove this bracket here because it's on the way. To do so, we're going to remove these 2 bolts first. This is 10mm splint bit, so we're going to remove this bracket now. By the look of it, it's enough, just make them loose. That's it. It's not on the way. I'll probably disconnect this sensor here. Just to take it all out of the way. There we go. Before we do anything to the mount or the bracket, we need to support the engine, because that's what the mount does. It just supports the engine. So we can hang the engine by this hook here, and then when we remove this plastic hose holder, it's just a little clip, so take it out. So you can hang the engine by this and this. It's all in a straight line, so let's put the engine beam, engine support beam, and then hang the engine to that. Some people recommend you to support the engine from the bottom using a jack and piece of wood. I prefer to do it more clean more precise way. Engine support beam, I told you about it before. Find two happy metal places to support it from, and then these two metal loops. You put these hooks in, and then you can regulate the tension, how you can support your engine. So let's get to our main engine mount now. Make sure this bolt sits nice and tight, so you know this is what supports the engine. And first we remove, we loosen, I'm going to show you now. Now this is a closer view of engine mount. Let's move this coolant hose aside. First what we need to do, two 18mm bolts, 1 and 2, we need to just loosen them. They are quite tight. There we go. And the other one. Now, with these two bolts loose, we need to remove this bolt down here. Then its twin brother on the other end, which is over there, and then this one here. So let's move. This is a 16mm bolt. Let's remove them. Let's move this plastic bit aside. Then remove. Take it out completely. And the other one. Any tightening torques, you can see my website, wheelsandmotors.com. I also remind you about tightening torques at the end of the video as well. Full description of what have I done with images, diagrams, see my website, wheelsandmotors.com. That's the other bolt out. One more thing, you need to remember which one's which. As you can see, length of the thread is different, and it has some little tiny bolt on the top. Next we remove this 13mm bolt. Easy peasy. And now, with these two bolts still loose, we can remove them completely. This is how long they are. Take them out. So now we are ready to remove our engine mount. This is what it looks like. This rubber bit absorbs all the vibrations. This is attached to the engine bracket that is attached to the engine, and this is attached to the car body. So what we need to do is remove this engine bracket, this here. Another good advice I can recommend you: the bolts, put the bolts where they're coming from so you don't lose them. Oh, so this one goes here, this one that goes here, and lay it aside. Before we are going to remove the bracket, another thing I want to do is to remove this underbelly cover, because it's a bit on the way. On my website, link below the video where the whole description is, I'll put the diagram of every single bolt that holds this cover. I'm not going to bore you now showing all the bolts, it's simply bolts. I can just tell you there are 3 at the back here, and then on the sides, some on the sides there we're already taking off, and this side T20s and T3 T45s, and some catches in the front. Simple, just remove this cover. So what we have here, I've undone all bolts around, and we have one remaining bolt, T45, and then a couple 2 catches at the front, and then we can just remove it and slide it back. Look how much space we have here now. Amazing. So where we are now, we have removed mount. We have left with the engine bracket, which is held to the engine by 3 bolts, 1, 2 and 3 at the bottom. So this engine bracket is attached normally to the mount. Mount is off now, and we have another belt here, which is spun by the engine obviously, and it spins your alternator that charges your battery and AC compressor. So we need to remove this belt first, and the pulley that spins this belt and this bracket. First I'm going to remove this little 10mm bolt which is under the bracket bolt. This bolt holds this coolant pipe, so I'm just going to remove it with 10mm spanner. Once you got it going, you can finish it by hand. It's not too long bolt, only this much of it. Good advantage of having the engine supported by support beam is because by spinning this you can adjust the height of your engine, so to get better access for these bolts. For example, these bolts are not accessible by socket so easy, so we have to raise the engine a little bit. So when you raise and lower the engine, make sure you don't jam any wires or pipes. Look around what it's doing. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to lower the engine. As you can see, the engine is going down. So for better access to the vibration damper, we're going to remove the auxiliary belt, vibration damper, and bottom bolt of this bracket. So, with the engine lowered, let's go underneath and see what's going on here. This is the wheel that is spun by the engine, this one here, and it's spin. This is a vibration damper, this pulley called, and it spins AC compressor and alternator. There is a little wheel here. this one here, with a 16mm bolt in the middle, as you can see on the top here. This is the one, and this is a tensioner wheel. To release decrease the tension, we need to turn it clockwise and then take the belt off. So I'm going to show you how it works. So this is our tensioner pulley. What we do, we put the 16mm socket on it, and remember, turn it clockwise, not anti-clockwise. You're not undoing anything, so you turn the tensioner wheel, and as you can see, the tension is decreased. So now we can stick the pin in. When you turn it, as you can see, there are two little holes that align. So now you can stick the little pin in there, like that. So it holds the wheel into its position, and now there is no tension in the belt, and you can easily remove it, just like that. You can take the belt off all the pulleys, and because you are going to refit this, what you need to remember is which way it was turning. You can either mark the direction with the arrow and chalk, or do the way I do. I just remember simply, as you can see some numbers and letters here, they go bottom end towards the engine. So this is the same way you're going to fit it. Remember it. I'm going to remind you when we're going to put it back. So take this belt off. Next thing what we are going to do is to remove this wheel, which is called vibration damper. It's held on four. These are 10mm splin. It's for 10mm splin bed, which looks like this, 12-sided, 10mm, and to give some counter hold so it doesn't spin while we're undoing it, we're gonna use the 12-sided 19mm socket in the middle, in here. So remove these bolts, all of them. I'm not gonna show you every single bolt, so just remove them. Wiggle it out. It can sit tight, but eventually it just comes off. There we go. Now it has revealed that pulley with the teeth that spins the cam belt or your timing belt. Now let's remove the bottom bolt of the bracket. The bottom bolt of engine bracket. Can you see this 10mm nut? So this nut is on the top of the bolt, of the bottom bolt of the bracket, and this nut holds the coolant pipe with a little bracket here. So we're going to remove this 10mm nut first. So to get better access to here, because we need to put 16mm socket through here as well, so I would recommend to just release these two 13mm nuts to move this hose, to give it a little bit more space here. Use some WD-40, especially on this one, because it was under the wheel arch, it had some dirt on it. This one should be okay. Just to give it a little bit more play. this one's tough. There we go. Now we can remove this 10mm nut. And take this little bracket off. Which will reveal, as you can see, there is a bolt underneath. This is a 16mm bolt and it's a bottom bolt of the bracket. This is a tricky bolt because even manual doesn't say how to remove it properly. It just says remove it. You can access it from the bottom, but how was a bit tricky. When I first time removed it, I had a lot of headache. So we are going to take our long, deep 16mm socket, and because this is all loose now, we can slide it through and put it on properly. It's a tight bolt, so you might use a breaker bar if you feel that you can't do it. And then this is how you remove it. Once you got it going, you can continue by hand, but please remember it's a long bolt, so the only way you can take it out is through this gap between pipe and wing. It can be a nightmare for if you don't know how to remove this bolt. I'm glad to share it with you. So let's raise the engine, lift it up and remove two top bolts. Let's bring the engine up. Make sure while it's going up you don't jam anything. Look for the hoses, wires. Now with the engine up, you can fit the socket to either of these top bolts, either this one, either the one just over there. I prefer to start with the one which is more difficult to reach. This is how you slide it on, and then simply put it on a bolt. So you might want to use some breaker bar if you can't turn them, or use some extension for your ratchet. I'm a big boy, I can do it. There we go. Same story as all other bolts. You can, once you get it loose, you can keep going by hand. So eventually we got it out, and it's very long bolt, so I believe we're going to take it. Oh no, there we go. This is our bolt. This is a long one. It's longer than this one, so please remember which one's which. Now let's remove our remaining 16mm. There we go. This one is easier than any other. There we go, 3 bolts out. Now when there's nothing holds the bracket, we can take it out, nice and careful. Wiggle it out, and this is our bracket. And we have 3 bolts here that held the bracket. The bottom one has another thread on the other side, that's for coolant pipe for the nut. The longest goes on the farthest side and the shortest goes on this one, so that's the way you remember these bolts. Now we have really good access to our cam belt, so let's remove the covers. And before we do that, let's remove this little connector, just to move it out of the way a little bit. So let's remove covers for our cam belt. Top bit is held by 3 clips, 1, 2 and another one just down there. So we undo this one, this and this, and now we can remove the cover. Then there is a bottom cover, this one here, and it held all together by 5 bolts. Sometimes they can be 10mm bolts. In our case this is T30 star head screwdriver. I'm gonna take it out and then I'm gonna show you what it looks like. Remaining 4 bolts of the bottom cover can be accessed from the bottom of the car. So this is like 1, 2, there's 3, and another one is just behind this pipe, just over there. I'm gonna take it out and I'm gonna show you what it looks like. The other thing we are going to do here now at the bottom, our tensioner wheel for auxiliary belt appears to be on the way of the cover. So what we are going to do, I'm going to put the 16mm spanner on the top of it. I'm going to remove the pin and so it moves away from the cover. Now we can take the pin out. So with all these bolts removed, we can remove the covers now. The cover. So this is what it looks like. This is your crankshaft. That's where it is, and sometimes they come in 2 pieces. They split here. So this particular one comes in 1 piece, 5 bolts. So now our cam belt system is all exposed here, and we are going to replace the cam belt and all pulleys and anything that needs to be replaced. Next thing we are going to do is turn the crankshaft in the correct servicing position, and we're gonna lock it. There are 2 types of lockers. As you can see, there's one with a mark on inside, and there's one which is specific for this engine. I'm just gonna take this handle off to give you a bit better view. As you can see, mark is on this side. So on our crankshaft pulley we have the mark, I'm gonna show you now, which is on a tooth. If you have a mark in the gap like this, then you have to use another tool, but that's different engine. So if you have different engine, you might have mark on your crankshaft in the gap. we have mark on the tooth, and we're gonna match tooth with the mark, with this mark, and we're gonna lock it to the engine block. As you can see, we have a little mark here on our crankshaft pulley. What we want to do is turn it clockwise till it goes on at 12 o'clock up, and then we're gonna put this crankshaft locker and lock it till it matches hole in the engine block. I'm using 19mm 12-sided socket on extension. So let's turn it clockwise till we bring this mark up. It's not so, it can be a bit tough because there is still compression going on, so it's like engine turning. Eventually we get it up. So when it's nearly at 12 o'clock position, you slide this locker so mark matches mark. And we put our 19mm back on the top, and then turn it slightly so you can slide crankshaft locker into the hole on the engine block. There we go. It's in. And this is the hole that you need to put this pin into and match the marks. Okay? As you can see, this little mark on the crankshaft pulley matches mark on the locker. Locker's pin goes inside the engine block. There is a hole for it about this size, and yeah, crankshaft is locked now. So let's go up. This is our camshaft pulley. They can differ slightly from engine to engine, depends on engine type. Some of them have these elongated holes in between these balls everywhere, and one of the elongated holes will be with like a little teeth. So you want to turn your crankshaft so your camshaft pulley stays with these teeth up. Instead of the elongated hole with the teeth, we have an arrow here. So what we want to do, we want this arrow to be up. For every turn of the camshaft, there are 2 turns of the crankshaft. So even if you lock your crankshaft properly, you might end up like we do now, when the camshaft is turned upside down. So I'm gonna take the locker out and turn crankshaft another 360 degrees to bring this arrow up. So let's turn this camshaft by turning crankshaft. Now lock the crankshaft again, same way as I showed you before, mark matches mark. Now our camshaft is in a service position, so we can stick the pin in there and lock the camshaft. I'm gonna give you a bit better view now of this hole. So as you can see, there is a hole in the camshaft and there is a hole in engine block. It all has to match, and your pin has to go all the way in there. Okay, so we'll take our pin looking like this, which is a Volkswagen tool 3359 I think, and you put it into the hole, and it has to go really deep inside, because on some other TDI engines camshaft is slightly wider and cam belt is a little bit wider, so on other engines it will go all the way in, but this one has to go seriously deep inside, like this. If it doesn't match for some reason, if it's a little bit out, don't panic, it's not the end of the world. You can always take the old cam belt and then align the pulley so it does match. In our case, we have perfect match, and it goes all the way in perfectly. Next thing we are going to do, we are going to loosen this 13mm bolts, so it has a little bit of a play. And this one here is the other hole that we need to match with the hole in the engine block with this little gap. So we put the same pin as we put in the camshaft in here. I don't expect it to match perfectly, so it's slightly out. I cannot fit this pin in, so as I said, this is not the end of the world. We're going to remove this cam belt, and then we're gonna lock the high pressure pump with this pin. So let's have a look at the other pulley we have here. This one here is a tensioner wheel, quite important wheel. It gives tension to the whole system so it doesn't get loose anywhere. And this is a 15mm nut we are going to undo now. So we put 15mm socket on the top of this bolt nut and just loosen it. As you do it, you'll see cam belt losing its tension a little. You can stick your 6mm hex Allen key and turn it anti-clockwise so the belt becomes loose. Now what we can do, we can take 13mm socket and remove this little bolt. To remove this guide roller. Remove this guide roller. It has a 13mm nut on the top of it, so I'm gonna remove it now. going to take it off. This is the one. Now everything is loose enough to be able to take the bolt off. I will start from this roller and then we can take it off the rest of the pulleys. So eventually, little by little, you can take your cam belt off. You still need to stick this pin of the high pressure pump in, so you can turn it slightly with a screwdriver so you can stick the pin in. Now it's secure. Next thing we are going to do is to remove this big guide roller. 16mm bolt in the middle. And let's remove this. There we go, quite a long bolt. Next thing we are going to do is remove the tensioner wheel, remove this nut, and then we can slide this tensioner wheel out. Because my cam belt kit comes with new studs as well that hold the tensioner and the pulley at the bottom here, so I'm gonna replace the studs as well. As you can see, they have no heads, so what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna put two M8 nuts. Don't use the nuts that come with the kit, because we don't want to do any damage to them. Lock them against each other. Lock them against each other with 13mm, two 13mm spanners, and then you can undo the stud by turning the bottom nut, which is this one. Now you can remove the old stud. Here we have our new cam belt kit. It comes with bolts and studs and nuts that needed to be there, with and also cam belt itself, and pulleys, including tensioner pulley, and three more pulleys that we are going to replace. There we go. Before you put new stud in, compare it to the old one, make sure it's like for like, they look the same. So you put new stud in, where it's supposed to go. I had a lot of trouble to find out what's the tightening torque for this stud supposed to be, because manual doesn't say anything. They mention even tightening torques for the stupid cover, but they don't mention tightening torque for this one. So I've been through the few garages. Some say, oh yeah, just make it tight enough, just as a mechanic you should understand. So how tight it is, so it's not too tight and not too weak. Finally I went to VW specialist garage. They told me it's 15 Newton meters, so we're going to tighten this up to 15 Newton meters. So let's put these two nuts back on the top. You don't need to lock them against each other too tight, because tightening torque for it to go into the engine's block is going to be only 15 Newton meters. Then we'll take our torque wrench, which is currently set for 15 Newton meter value. There we go, 15 Newton meters reach. Now we take our spanners again, and we start with the bottom nut. To unlock them against each other. There we go. Preferably, something you need to know, preferably do not apply a thread lock inside the engine block there, because it gets hot, and next time you're gonna change anything, it can be seized really properly. So 15 Newton meters is enough. Do that to another stud. The other bolt appeared to be slightly stiffer, because probably as the replacement, as you can see this blue bit here, as the replacement bolt, it comes with a little bit of thread lock, so it was a bit, maybe because the thread is not as long as this one, so it comes with the blue stuff. Same story as the top stud, you tighten it up till 15 Newton meters. There we go. Now take the nut off. Next thing we are going to do is replace this water pump, this bad boy here. It's held by 3 10mm bolts. It's recommended when you replace the cam belt, replace the water pump as well, because it's not that expensive, and you don't want, if it's failing, you don't want to go for all this hassle just to get to the water pump. So it's gonna leak coolant when you remove it, so put the tray underneath to catch any coolant. 3 10mm bolts all around it. Remove them all. I'm not gonna show you every single bolt. I'll take the pump out, I'll show you where they are. Now, I've removed 2 of them. I've left with 1 more, which is loose, and I'm gonna undo it by hand. There it is. So now we can take our pump out, wiggle it. It can sit tight because it has a rubber seal inside. It sits really tight. So eventually I got the grip and I moved it. So now we can wiggle it out. There we go. Hold the. As you can see, coolant is leaking in there. So make sure you have a tray in there. Hold it with a pump so it doesn't go out as a in a high volume straight away, and then eventually just let it go. So this is our bad boy, which is probably not in bad condition anyway, but we'll replace it. Why not? Things wear out. There's some funny black bit here. So let's take our new pump. Also comes with a new seal, as you can see, so we're gonna put the new seal on the new pump and compare it if it's the same. It is indeed. Look at them. Nice one. This is where the 3 holes used to be, and this is a little thread hole for the cambelt cover. So let's insert the new pump. It comes with a new seal, so to avoid any pinching I'm gonna put some grease on the top of this seal just to make it nice, getting in nice and easy. And let's put it around our new pump. Easy peasy. Check it sits properly, and let's put it back in. When you're putting it in, make sure this rubber bit is not twisted, not sits straight and correct, because you don't want your coolant to be leaking there, because that's a hassle again of removing your whole cam belt. It's lubricated. Don't lubricate it with WD-40 because it's not really lubricated, just grease will do. And just slide it where it belongs. Like that. Tighten these bolts to the 15 Newton meters of torque. So if it's too much to remember for you, there's a link below this video. I'll put description everything what I have done, every single bolt, every torque value. So see my website. You can see it in PDF format, images, diagrams, everything. So don't hesitate, come. I'll be happy to see you there. Right, I've done all the other bolts, 15 Newton meters, and this is the last one. There we go. Water pump is in. Now let's install all our pulleys. Let's start with the big one, 16 millimeter bolt. Start it with your hands so you get the thread right. This bolt is a tight bolt. It's 50 Newton meters plus 90 degrees further. So not 15 as those little ones, but 50. That's 50 Newton meters. Eventually I ended up using a torque wrench because it can be used as a ratchet as well, so I've turned this to the right 90 degrees. So this pulley is on now. Then we take our new pulley, it comes also with a new nut. Make sure that this sticking out bit goes into this rectangular hole, so it doesn't spin the bottom bit of it, like that. Then we temporarily put the new nut on, so it holds it in its place. So what we do now, because we are going to fit new belt, we want it to be as far away, giving less tension as it can. So with a 6mm Allen key, you turn this top bit so we can fit the pin into this hole. This particular tensioner wheel has a hole in the size of 5mm hex Allen. Some of them, like the one we took off, have slightly different hole. I'm going to show you. This is the wheel that we took off. As you can see, this hole is much smaller than 5mm hex Allen. If you have tensioner like this, then use the tool from your tool set for cambelt. This is what it looks like. T10265, that's what this tool called. Have a look on my website, link below to description of everything. So if hex Allen 5mm doesn't fit in it, then you fit this tool. It goes nicely. So put the pin in. Simple. I've just noticed I made a mistake, and I don't want you to make my mistake. The cambelt kit comes with two nuts. One is 15mm, another one with 13mm. They both have same thread inside, M8. So the bigger one, the 15mm, goes on a tensioner pulley. So please make sure you put the one which is a 15 on a tensioner pulley. So with the pin in, turn this tensional to as far as it goes, and then tighten this bolt nut, 15, which is a 15mm. Please remember, 15mm. Tighten it enough so it holds the tensioner in its place. In this position, your tensioner is as far as away from tensioning your belt as it can be. By the way, when you're removing the belt, this is the way how you detension to the maximum, so you can remove belt much easier. Now let's fit this guide roller at the top. Torque of this bolt is 20 Newton meters. This torque wrench is set for 20 Newton meters. There we go. There is something else that I have in my cambelt kit. This bolts here and this bolts here 3 bolts on the sides of the pulley and 3 bolts on the sides of this one are also can be replaced. So let's replace them. These are 10 millimeter 12-sided. So let's remove them. Once they're loose, you can remove them by hand, as usually. Then you take your new bolts and fit them in. And do the same with these bolts. Just replace them. These 3 bolts. I'm not going to show you how I replace the bolts. It's simple. Do that. Once you put new bolts in, make sure you don't tighten them yet, because the camshaft is locked. It's not going anywhere. It's just the outer shell, so it can be adjusted because there are elongated holes. So put it in a position so this bolt is kind of in between, in the middle of this elongated hole. Same applies for the high pressure pump. As you can see, you can also, this outer shell can also move, so make sure you leave it in the middle, bolts in the middle. And now we're ready to fit our new belt. Start it from the bottom, from the crankshaft, because crankshaft is locked, it cannot turn. Anything else is at least has a play or can move. So, and then fit it where it should go. Just take your time, put it around all pulleys where it has to go. Eventually I got it on properly, the way I'm happy with it. The easiest way I find, get it around crankshaft first, around this tensioner. Then you put it around the camshaft wheel, then high pressure pump, and then water pump, and then last bit you put over this last bit. So if these bolts and these bolts are not in the middle of the elongated holes, do it again, skip one tooth or add one tooth to the tension, so eventually you got it on the way you're happy with it. Now let's put one remaining guide roller. Let's fit our last guide roller that sits under the tensioner wheel. There we go. And secure it with the nut and tighten it up to 20 Newton meters. Easy peasy. Right, I'm not gonna show you because I need to remove camera so I can have more play for the torque range. 20 Newton meters for this one, okay? Check again that the belt sits around all pulleys correctly and is happy, not edging out, not too deep. And then we release this 15mm bolt. Now, and you'll see the tensioner spring back. As we loosen it, there we go. Now you can remove this pin and forget about it. Now take your 6mm hex Allen key, put it into this hole. I will want to put this tensioner wheel into the tension. Turn it clockwise till you see this little metal arrow, this triangular bit, till it reaches this gap. And because when we're going to adjust the belt, just do it slightly past the middle of the gap. So when we do adjustments, it will go back pretty much in the middle. So go slightly past this middle of the gap, and then tighten this 15mm nut. Tighten this nut just strong enough to hold it, and then apply the specific torque on it. Which I'll tell you about in a minute. Tighten this nut up to 20 Newton meters and then turn 45 degrees further. And now let's turn it 45 degrees more. Next thing we want to do is tighten up these bolts, 20 Newton meters each, these and those on a high pressure pump. These ones here. Okay, so tighten 20 Newton meters. I'm not going to show you because it's 6 bolts to do. And so, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the point where our cambelt is replaced. Our bolts, pulleys, everything had to be done is done. Now is the time for us to take the pins out, and the other one, which sits quite tight, but that's alright. We have our universal pulley holder. I told you about it before. So what we can do, can apply a little bit of pressure either way, whichever way it needs, and then take it out. Despite that everything here looks nice and pretty, we still need to check that it's tuned properly, because it's quite important that camshaft is in a good position with the crankshaft. So what we're going to do now is take the crankshaft locker out, turn it 2 rotations, twice 360 degrees, so this pulley makes a full round, and then we'll check if we can fit pin back in. This bad boy here, high pressure pump, you don't have to put pin again when you turn it, these 2 rotations of the crankshaft, because manual says if it's slightly off the line, if it's around there somewhere, it's not a problem because it will still work. It doesn't have to be so aligned as a camshaft. So this one we'll leave it as it is. We'll check, we'll see if those holes match more or less. 5mm there and back is not a problem. Now let's go to the bottom, take the crankshaft locker off and make it turn twice, so this wheel, this pulley, goes around 180 degrees, and then we'll lock the crankshaft and then see if we can fit the pulley. If not, then we'll make some adjustments. Take this locker off and apply 19mm 12-sided socket and turn twice 360 degrees. Make 2 full rotations till you bring this mark up again. Also, one important thing you need to know: to lock the crankshaft, you have to rotate it clockwise, so don't go all the way to locking point, a little bit before, then put the locker on and then turn it to lock it, so the tension stays with the direction of the engine rotation. Okay, so don't go past it and turn it back and lock it, but a little bit before locking point, put the locker on and then turn it clockwise slightly so you can lock it. So turn it clockwise till it goes in. Now let's go back to the top and see if we can fit the pin or need to make any adjustments. Let's see if we can try to fit the pin in. Pin doesn't want to go in. You can use the little mirror or a mobile phone with the camera and see what's going on there. I'm gonna show you from my phone camera what's going on in there. It is very close to the true position, maybe slightly a little bit offset. So let's put it right. To put it right, this is what you do. You unlock the crankshaft at the bottom, turn it anti-clockwise slightly, but definitely so it goes over the locking point, and then you turn it clockwise till the pin can go in. So please remember, with the crankshaft or camshaft, when you're locking it, to keep the correct tension, to keep the correct rotation of the belt, you have to turn it clockwise before pin goes in, or before crankshaft locker goes in. So let's turn it anti-clockwise slightly. Take the locker off and turn it anti-clockwise. If you're doing this job with someone else, it's much easier to turn the crankshaft from the bottom, and then someone from the top could put the pin in. I'm doing on my own, so I brought the brake bar that I'm turning the crankshaft with to the top. So I'm gonna turn it now and try to put the pin in. Turn it. And that's it. The pin has gone in. Now what we want to do is release these 3 bolts, 13mm, and to make sure we don't create any extra tension and our wheel doesn't go anywhere, we can apply some counter hold. And then loosen these 13mm bolts. With all these 3 bolts loose and camshaft locked in the correct position, we want to put crankshaft in correct position. So what we're going to do now, we're going to turn the crankshaft again for the proper tension. We're going to turn the crankshaft anti-clockwise a little bit, past the locking point, and then turn it clockwise as we did, and then lock it. Now at the bottom we can turn crankshaft anti-clockwise. It can go only as far as the elongated holes will allow us, and then start turning it clockwise. Just before locking point, put the crankshaft stop at the top, and then keep turning it clockwise. Make sure mark matches mark. Turning it clockwise till you can lock it, like that. There we go. Now let's go back to the top and tighten those bolts. Our crankshaft and camshaft are aligned, so we can apply this contour hold and tighten these 3 bolts up to 20 Newton meters. I have this torque wrench which is set for 20 Newton meters, so tighten these bolts. I'm not going to show you every single bolt. Make sure you apply contour hold so nothing moves anywhere. There we go. And do it to other 2 bolts. Now with all bolts tightened, let's take our locks out, pin and crankshaft lock, and turn another 2 rotations of the crankshaft to make sure that it's all aligned properly. Let's take this pin out. When you're turning your engine, it has to be the same feel as with your old cambelt. So if something doesn't go right, if you have a lot of resistance, something gets jammy, stop and check what can be wrong. Do the full turn, lock the crankshaft, and see this time the pin goes all the way in. Happy days! Look at that. Eventually we achieve the result. If it doesn't go in, then do the same again, do the same story again. Now we know that camshaft is aligned with the crankshaft properly. These bolts currently are tightened to 20 Newton meters, so to make them a little bit tighter we have to turn them 45 degrees more with the contour hold. Apply some contour hold and then turn each one of these bolts 45 degrees more so they sit tight and our settings don't break. Now let's have a final look. What does it look like inside there? Where are you? There you go. As you can see, it's right in the middle. I'll give you better focus. As you can see, the hole is right in the middle, so the pin goes in nicely. Let's check our fellow high pressure pump, also within reasonable deviation. And then have a look at this metal rectangular. Also have a look at our tensioner. This arrow points right in the middle of this gap, so it has to be either in the middle or there either 5 millimeters up to 5 millimeters to the right. You don't want it to be not enough tensioning, so you don't want it to be on this side. So either in the middle, either up to 5 millimeters to the right. That's why when we put the tensioner, when we tension it, then we did it slightly past the middle. Now after all our adjustments, it's going to the middle. I think all this cambelt system now is perfect. So let's put it back together. Before we are going to put everything back together now, what I want to do, I want to fill up the coolant system to see if there's any leaks. So what we've lost now, 2 liters of antifreeze and coolant, squash it with water, preferably distilled water if you have. Right, it doesn't seem to be leaking anywhere, so let's put covers back on. So let's take this cover and put it on. This is the crankshaft we're supposed to go. So we put this one, 5 bolts. You know you've been there, just put it back in. Next thing we are going to do is to put this cover back on. See the places where it overlaps. So when you slide it in, if you see it's not the way it's supposed to be, it's just quite intuitive. So it overlaps the bottom cover in these places. So make sure it sits happy. And then 3 clips, 1, 2, and 3. 2 are located on the engine and 1 is on the cover itself. So put it back on. There we go. Next thing what we are going to do is either fit the auxiliary belt and vibration damper or put the bracket on. I don't think it's so much important which sequence. I'm gonna do the vibration damper first and then bracket. So let's turn the tensioner wheel back again. And stick the pin in. I can't stick the pin in because of the camera on the way. I'm not gonna show you again and again how you stick pin in because you've seen it before when we removed it. So just turn it and stick the pin in. So this is our tensioner and with the pin in, so we can put vibration damper on here and fit the auxiliary belt in. This is our vibration damper. Please mind it has 5 holes despite there are 4 bolts. This 5th hole is for little pin sticking out on the crankshaft pulley, so make sure there is only one way you can fit it. Okay, so this little tiny hole goes in a little pin on the crankshaft, and then the rest you fill with the bolts, tighten them up with a tightening torque of 10 Newton meters plus 90 degrees footer. Simple. So there we go. For all the tightening torques, diagrams, images, what has been done, full description, see my website, the link below the video, just click it and you'll get to the page which will give you options to see it in PDF format if you like, or if you need to print it or just to see the page, you can comment it, discuss it. So welcome. Let's tighten these bolts up. Now we are ready to fit auxiliary belt. You can fit new one, it costs nothing, it's like a tenner in current prices in UK. I find my is in really good condition, so I'm gonna refit it. If you refit it, remember these when I took it off, these little letters, they should go bottom towards the engine, so your auxiliary belt spins the same way So it's kind of important. Manual says so. If you refit it, just make sure you fit it so it turns the same way. I'm gonna start it from the top and then drop it down. I placed it over the alternator pulley. Now let's put it around here. Easy peasy. And then around the tensioner wheel. Like that. It seems like alternator pulley. It came off of the alternator pulley, so I'm going to back to the top and correct it. Nice and easy. This belt is, comparing to the other belt, is so easy. You don't have to bother with timing. You don't have to do much. Now we're going to release this tension. So we're gonna take the pin out. I have to remind you again, check that it sits nicely. Don't edge out on any of the pulleys. And then we take that pin out. There we go. And slowly release the tension like that. I'm gonna check again the pulleys. Everyone nice. Okay, auxiliary belt is on. So we are going to raise the engine now to be able to fit the bracket. I mean this guy here. So we raise it. I'm not gonna show you again, waste of time. Raise it, 2 bolts at the top, bolt at the bottom. You've seen it taking off, just do it in reverse sequence. Oh yeah, and don't forget about the coolant pipes. One is attached here with a little 10mm bolt, another one with a little bracket, and the nut goes on the top of this bolt. Let's put the bracket on. I'm not going to show you, as I said. Bracket on. Ta-da! The bracket is on. So do it in the opposite sequence as we removed it, but my advice, follow that sequence, because fit the first top bolts first, but don't fit that 10mm that holds the coolant pipe, because you need to play with your coolant pipe at the bottom. Then attach the bottom bolt, coolant pipe at the top, nut, and then the last bit you do 10mm bolt for the coolant pipe. Okay, so bracket is on. Let's put the mount on. Yeah, I forgot to mention, bracket bolts are 40 Newton meters plus 180 degrees further. So you tighten to 40 Newton meters and then turn another 180 degrees. Pretty tight. So this is our mount. The bolt with the thread on the other side goes on this side, because this is what's gonna hold our fuel filter. This way. First we tighten these bolts and that one, and then big bolts that attach to the bracket we adjust it with the engine height and position, and then they have elongated holes here for easier insertion. So yes, let's crack it on. Yeah, by the way, this little sensor connector Don't forget to connect it. So it clicks here before we put stuff on the top of it. That's it. Now I have to tell you tightening torques for mount and bolts around it. So this 13 millimeters is 20 Newton meters plus 90 degrees further. These two 16 millimeter bolts are 40 Newton meters plus 90 degrees further. Don't do 180, okay? It's 90. And those big ones, I haven't put them in yet, but I will do it in a minute. These are 60 Newton meters plus 90 degrees further. Okay, so 20 plus 90 degrees, 40 plus 90 degrees, and these are tougher, 60 plus 90 degrees. Okay, so put the mount on. So with the mount on, let's raise the engine a little bit, so these holes on the bracket will match the holes on the mount. The holes on the bracket, in my case, they've gone a little bit too far that way. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna raise the lower the engine now. As I lower the engine, it doesn't go low down straight, but it goes slightly forward as well. So I'm gonna put this long bolt, and I'm gonna bring the engine up with the bolts. Make sure you get this bolt straight on a thread and then tighten them up. Don't do one, just to do them little by little each of them, so they come up evenly. Bring the engine up. And these bolts went into the bracket deep inside, quite deep inside, so that's a relief. That means we can finally remove our engine support. There we go. Take our torque wrench and set it for 60 Newton meters. When you reach it, turn 90 degrees more. Easy. That's it. Engine mount is on. Engine is connected back to normal position. Let's put the fuel filter on and covers. That's pretty much it. One more important thing. Please remember your coolant, because I put just 2 liters in there. It doesn't go in any over the maximum. So it didn't get anywhere it needs to go. So there is a special strategy, should I say, how to get it where it needs to go. There's also, of course, there is a bleeding machine, coolant bleeding machine, where you can bleed the coolant, but there's a normal garage way of getting coolant where it needs to go. I'll just put the fuel filter on and we'll start the engine. There he is, a little beast. So let's put it back on. I'll connect hoses first. Let's take our magic pliers. I'll connect. I'm not gonna show you again how to connect it. Where you disconnected them, put them back on. Once you connected hoses, attach fuel filter back to the mount. 10 millimeter, 2 bolts and 1 nut, and clip this little plastic clip on the top. Don't forget to put hoses back into its clips. There's one here, and there's one just here where we used to put our hook on to hang the engine. There we go, nice and tidy. Then we forgot about this. You don't. This little bracket here. There we go. Tight it up, then don't forget a couple of sensors here. One is this one. Another one is for the fuel. They designed so you can't put them wrong way around, so don't be panicking. All done. I'll tighten up these bolts. So let's remove all tools. Make sure you don't leave anything on the engine, in the engine, under the engine. So what I'm gonna do now, I'm gonna start the engine, I'm gonna run it for, keep like 2000 RPMs for 3 minutes, and put the heating on. So because your heating is your hot coolant heats the heating, so coolant goes everywhere it needs to go. Heating on full, both sides if it's dual zone climate, and then just run it, and then look at the level and top up if necessary. Let's start the engine. That's it, ladies and gentlemen. That's how you replace the timing belt and the water pump, something that some people are really scared about. As you can see, it's not a rocket science. In this car I have to put undercover, in wheel liner and wheels back on. I'm not gonna bore you with that. It's done. See my website for all the description, all the tightening torques, everything nice, any format you like, and diagrams, images, everything nice and clear. So thank you for watching. More about other cars, wheelsandmotors.com. Cheers, bye.